I've been getting a lot of comments, and I mean a lot of comments, about Davros on my videos recently. Normally this would be great. I enjoy answering questions from the community, and I'm always happy to have a good chat about the creator of the Daleks. Unfortunately, a lot of these recent comments have been related to a singular and honestly quite tiresome topic. The fact that Davros is depicted as being out of his chair in the 2023 Children in Need special Destination Skaro. Now I know I've already made a video covering this topic, but the swathe of comments I got on that video and the many comments I've been getting on other videos since makes me think that I either didn't explain the topic very well, or that there were a lot of people who don't want to take the time to understand what's going on here. Probably a bit of both, to be honest. So I wanted to make this follow-up video to hopefully sort this thing out once and for all. The main questions I've been getting are these. Has Russell T Davies changed the canon to eliminate Davros' chair? Will future depictions of Davros also show him out of his chair? And doesn't the Children in Need special contradict previous sources related to Davros' backstory, thereby messing with the timeline and by extension the canon? I'll tackle these questions one by one. First off, has Russell T Davies changed the canon to eliminate Davros' chair? Answer, no. Destination Skaro is a prequel to Genesis of the Daleks, taking place at a point in time before Davros' accident that severely injured him and forced him to rely on a life support chair for survival. As far as the timeline of Doctor Who goes, Davros' chair has not been erased. This is not an attempt to overwrite previous televised Doctor Who stories in which Davros is in his chair, and the pre-existing chronology of Davros' history spanning Genesis of the Daleks to the Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar, including all of the audios, books and comics set between those stories, is very much intact and unaltered. It almost goes without saying that any attempt to undermine or overwrite these classic stories will be futile and would only serve to fuel further fragmentation and polarisation in the fandom. While Doctor Who's long-standing association of evil characters with physical disabilities is unfortunate, it's a part of the show's history that should be acknowledged and offset by more examples of positive disability representation, rather than something that should be suppressed and altered. After all, as many have pointed out, both disabled and able-bodied people can be evil, just as disabled and able-bodied people can be good. And there are examples of things in Doctor Who's past that, through the modern lens, are problematic, that should be preserved as lessons on representation and sensitivity rather than altered or destroyed. As the old adage states, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. Secondly, will future depictions of Davros also show him out of his chair? The answer to this is less clear. Russell T Davies seemed to imply in the Doctor Who Unleashed that was released alongside Destination Skaro that there's a possibility that, in the future, we may see Davros out of his chair. This wouldn't be the same chairless Davros that we see in Destination Skaro, mind you. It will be a version of Davros from after his chair-bound appearances, spanning Genesis of the Daleks to the Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar, in which he has chosen to modify his physical form in some way so that he is no longer reliant on the chair. Again, this is simply speculation. It could be that Russell T Davies will show Davros in his chair again. It could be that after seeing all this backlash against Destination Skaro, we simply won't see Davros again for the duration of the Russell T Davies era, which would be a shame. But if you think about it, from what we see in Series 9, during the last chronological appearance of Davros that we have seen on screen, there are several reasons why he might choose to abandon his chair. For one, Series 9's opening two-parter indicated, more than any other prior Davros story, that Davros' chair has become a liability for him, a potential weakness. During the events of this story, we see that he is removed from his chair forcibly, rendering him helpless. We also see the Doctor using his chair and its abilities to his own advantage, and it's only thanks to Colony Sarf that the chair is returned to Davros. After Colony Sarf was killed by Missy, and Davros was abandoned in the crumbling ruins of the Dalek city, it is not too much of a stretch to think that he might have started re-evaluating his opinions of his chair in the time frame between this two-parter and the next time we see him, leading him to perhaps create new cybernetics that serve as his life support system without him having to rely on the chair. There is also another separate factor in this story that lends an even more compelling argument for a change in Davros. He absorbs a huge amount of the Doctor's regeneration energy. It has been shown in the past that regeneration energy can be used to heal others, and so perhaps, intentionally or not, Davros may have begun the process of healing his physical injuries in the time between Series 9 and whenever we next see him. This has the potential to be a very interesting story for Davros. For all we know, he doesn't want to heal, but the regeneration energy heals him anyway, and his process of healing, further distinguishing him from his creations, could cause them to turn on him and once again cast him out. Since Davros has been a largely static character for the decades that he has been a part of Doctor Who lore, this potential for a new and bold chapter in the story of the character is not unwelcome. And lastly, doesn't the Children in Need special contradict previous sources related to Davros' backstory, thereby messing with the timeline and by extension the canon? Answer, yes. On a simplistic surface level reading, it would seem that it does. Destination Skaro appears to contradict the audio stories Davros and I, Davros, by having it so that Davros creates the Daleks before his accident, rather than creating the Daleks based on his own life support chair post-accident, as we hear in these audio stories. But there are many ways of rationalising this, both in-universe and out-of-universe. For one, how do we know that the events of Davros' backstory given to us in Davros and I, Davros are even true? Both of these audios are framed as Davros recounting his personal backstory to others, Lorraine Baines and the Dalek Supreme Council respectively. Those who have listened to both Davros and I, Davros will know that there are small discrepancies between the versions of Davros' backstory given to us in each of these audios, specifically regarding Shan, the woman who came up with the initial idea of the Daleks according to these stories, and Davros' family and friends. Can we really trust Davros, a man who lies and deceives as second nature in almost every episode he appears in, to be a reliable narrator? I think not. In both of these contexts, Davros is relating his backstory to other characters in order to convince them of something. In Davros, he's feeding Lorraine's pro-Dalek sympathies and openly admits that it was Shan, not he, who had the original idea for the Daleks, making the argument that he based the design of the Daleks on his life support chair completely redundant. In I, Davros, he is attempting to convince the Daleks to install him as their emperor, and so recounts to them his most twisted and ruthless acts during the early days of their creation. If he admitted then and there that his current form was inspired by them, and not the other way around as he implies in these audios, then would that not work against his case to set himself up as their patriarch, thereby giving him a perfect reason to lie? Also, as Doctor Who has shown us many times in many different ways, time can be rewritten. This is a fundamental concept of Doctor Who, both in and out of universe. The Time War, Big Bang 2, the Toymaker, these are all in-universe concepts that have been confirmed in previous stories to have altered past events, ranging from minor details to major plot developments. Big Finish, the same company who made the Davros and I, Davros audios, also created an audio in which the War Master undoes the creation of the Daleks, killing Davros as a boy and taking his place in the timeline during the Time War, before these events are themselves overwritten. Big Bang 2 from Series 5 establishes that the entire Doctor Who universe as we know it was recreated from Amy Pond's memories, and the emergence of the Toymaker post-Flux has allowed for all manner of bizarre creatures to be unleashed on the universe, and he implies that he has been messing with the Doctor's timeline to an indeterminate degree. Who knows what he changed? And when it comes to messing with the Doctor's timeline, individuals like Davros, Rassilon, Omega and the Master are the obvious place to start. The Toymaker turned the Master into a gold tooth. Who knows what he did to Davros? There is also the fact that these changes to the canon have been done before. Remember when it turned out that the Master had drumming in his head for its entire life, that he had never mentioned before until the Sim incarnation, only for it to never be mentioned again once a new showrunner took over? How about the fact that Remembrance of the Daleks implies that the first Doctor was setting up a scheme to destroy the Daleks at a point in his timeline before he'd even met them? And what about the fact that the existence of Davros himself, as well as the entirety of the events of Genesis of the Daleks, overwrote the events of the TV21 Dalek comics, the original origin story of the Daleks from the 1960s? We as a fandom have been able to rationalise two completely different Dalek origin stories within the same universe. Surely a minor discrepancy in the timeline of one character is child's play by comparison. Throughout its history, Doctor Who has maintained only a very loose canon, especially between eras. Sure, it can be argued that maintaining a cohesive continuity within a specific showrunner's era is important, but across the entire series? It's impossible, nor should it be something that is encouraged. If the history of this channel proves anything, it's that the Daleks themselves have a twisted, overlapped and contradictory timeline, and long may it remain so. The day Doctor Who starts narcissistically worrying about the trivial minutiae of canon consistency throughout its 60-year run is the day that it loses a key aspect of its identity as a show. And the fact that there are numerous in-universe justifications for timeline inconsistencies, the fundamental nature of the series as a show about time travel being chief among them, makes any attempt to rationalise a cohesive and conflictless canon impossible. Some of the greatest stories in Doctor Who's history are ones that put the immediate story first, regardless of whether or not it meshes with the canon. And in truth, the concept of a canon in the literary sense runs contrary to the essential aspect of Doctor Who as a show where there are no limits. Anything can happen, and adventure, fun and exploration are the top priorities. So, are you going to drive yourself insane trying to rationalise each and every one of the thousands of inconsistencies across the entire Doctor Who expanded universe? Or are you, like me, going to relax and enjoy the exploration of time and space, everything that could ever happen or ever will, in a wooden box time machine that's bigger on the inside? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.